The number one reason why you can't sleep is because you see sleep as a luxury, not a necessity. It's down to poor preparation and our attitude when it comes to sleeping on shifts. And in this video, I'm going to give you the exact system that I teach clients to get deep, restful sleep, to feel energized, alert, there for themselves, there for their colleagues, and most importantly, there for their families, so they're not just surviving shift to shift. If you're watching this in my community, I encourage you to check out the sleep module, or if you're watching this elsewhere, you can scan the QR code on the screen right now, or you can click the link in the description in order to sign up to 14 Ways in 14 Days, a free resource I put together in which each day, 14 days, you will get an email from me with a specific issue and a way how to fix it, specifically engineered towards shift workers. I should know, I was a shift worker for many years. Okay, so when we talk about sleep and we talk about preparation for sleep, the main thing we need to talk about is what you do before you actually get into bed. Often by the time we get into bed after a night shift, a lot of the damage has already been done. We get into bed, we sit there, we play on our phones, we are wide awake, we're wired after a particular hectic shift. Your energy, your cortisol, your stress hormones, your adrenaline might have been peaks and troughs. Certainly, like I said, if you work in emergency services, you can often go from one job to another, or one case to another. Or if you work in healthcare, there can be many different reasons why. Your body may feel quite tight and quite pent up, and your emotions, your nervous system is basically firing on all cylinders. You then get into bed and your brain goes, why are we going to sleep? You know, we're wide awake. So we need to look at what we're doing before we even really go to work. So the main thing with this is that we need to prepare. So there's a few things here which I want to talk about. And I've just grabbed the wrong colour pen. I've actually grabbed the two wrong colour pens here. Okay. So we need to prepare our sleeping space because we need to make sure that we are treating sleep as a necessity and an essential rather than a luxury. So we need to prepare our space. So one way how we can do this is with blackout blinds, or an eye mask. Personally, I'd always go for blackout blinds because they'll make the entire room dark, and I don't like having something over my face. But an eye mask is a cheaper, still effective way. And the reason why we do that is because we are not supposed to be asleep during the day and awake during the night. Our brains are hardwired through our parasympathetic nervous system, basically the nervous system which controls heartbeat, controls sleep, controls the regulation of the function of the body. That wants to be awake during the day. And what I found when I was in the police, when I was working shifts, was I could get into bed extremely tired. And I found that no matter how tired I was, I would wake up after about half an hour and I'd really struggle to get back to sleep. I'd be absolutely exhausted and feeling like a zombie. So I invested in some blackout blinds. Massively helped. Because as soon as sunlight hits our eyes, like I said, no matter how tired we are, our body wants to be awake, our brain wants to be awake. Sunlight and our brains are an incredibly powerful driver to being awake. So we need to invest in some blackout blinds. We need to prepare our sleeping environment, in particular if you work nights quite a lot. We need to create darkness. We need to tell our brains, you may think it's light, but in here it's dark and this is where we're going to sleep. So blackout blinds, and also light suppresses melatonin, and melatonin controls sleep and depth as well. So the less light that we have, the more melatonin, the more of this sleep hormone we will generate and we will create. Another thing I always used to really like is I would either have a fan, and I don't mean a fan as in someone cheering you on, like, go on, you go to sleep, not one of them, a fan or a white noise machine. And then there is also potentially earbuds too. I am left-handed, you'll have to forgive me. Okay, now why am I saying that we need these? Okay, so a fan serves two purposes. We want to make our room cool. This is very important when it comes to the summer months too. And we do that by, like I said, either having windows open, but that can cause its issues when it comes to noise during the day. Or, even better, we close our windows, we have a nice fan. A good fan is quite essential because it will obviously, like I said, make us ourselves cooler, but it also creates white noise. And white noise is basically, I describe white noise as loud silence. It's just one level. It can be static. There's plenty of YouTube videos you can watch which just have it's just white noise, it's static. And this is what a fan does as well. The hum of the fan will create that loud silence. And it just gives your brain something to kind of focus on. And it also blocks out distractions from the outside world. Like I said, in particular, if it's hot outside and you want the windows open, that creates a problem because then the outside noises can come in. So if we don't have blackout blinds or something to cover our eyes, we're getting sunlight in. And if we don't have some way of blocking out the outside world, the noise outside, then you're both getting sunlight and stimulus. This is not indicative to a restful sleep either. Also, what we want to be doing is before we finish work, so say for example, we start work here and we end work here, call this a 12-hour shift, all right? So call that 6 hours in. We want to stop consuming caffeine approximately 4 hours from the end of our shift. Why am I saying that? Because what happens is we drink all the caffeine because we want to stay awake. I understand that, but the reason why we need the caffeine is because we're tired, because we haven't done the preparation earlier. Are you with me? So if we can get into the habit of implementing these different things and making our sleep a priority, we will wake up feeling more rested, more energized, meaning that we won't need all that coffee in the later aspects of our shift. Because caffeine, I mean, I'm not an expert on caffeine, but caffeine's a stimulant. You then go into bed, you're then trying to sleep, and you'll find that you can't sleep because, well, you're full of caffeine. And you also are doing it out of blackout blinds, and there is sunlight, and the room is too hot, and you don't have white noise. So very simply, reduce your caffeine about 4 hours before you go to bed. When you get into bed, make sure you have your blackout blinds, make sure you have your white noise and your fan. That way, it will help with a more sustainable sleep. And what I also advise you to do is, I'm not a medical expert, so if you need to consult your doctor on this, is what I'd say, maybe look at getting some magnesium. I always found this really helped. Magnesium tablets, they're quite cheap. You can get them from your local supermarket, you can order them offline. And these are just really, really good. So magnesium helps to soothe your body, it helps to relax you. So compounded with all this and some magnesium, you should be able to relax quite a lot when you get into bed. I would say take the magnesium about an hour before you go to sleep to make sure it's in your system and it's there, maybe half an hour. But we're going to get into more tips as to what you need to do when you get home and you're preparing for sleep. So this is preparing your sleep space, but I want to talk about unwinding, I want to talk about decompression and protecting our mental health and making sure that our body is relaxed enough to get into a good sleep state. I'm going to talk about that near the end of the video. So the next thing I want to mention is, what do we do when we are actually in work? And the issues what we can face which can make us struggle to sleep later on. How good's a whiteboard? You know, I never used to pay attention in school. I wasn't the best in school because I used to find, well, I just didn't have very good attention span, to be honest. However, maybe I could have been a teacher in a former life, but some may argue that's what I'm doing right now. I've just dropped my pen lid. Ooh. Oh, it's got dog fur on it. Lovely. Okay. Motherfucker. I'm a professional, me, I promise. Okay. Number 2, what do we do during the shift? What sort of things do we have which we struggle with during the shift? Okay, so when we are in work, we are staring at computers. There is overhead lighting. On top of that, you've also got stress. And stress will be an important factor later when it comes to decompression. Essentially what these are is these emit blue lights. And what blue light does is blue light makes our brains believe that it is daylight. So blue light makes us think it's daylight, so we need to reduce the amount of blue light we are getting. This can actually be quite a simple fix in that we can look at getting some kind of blue light blocker. There is also the ability to change the screen settings in which we can actually turn the screen blue. A lot of modern computers now will have like a nighttime mode where it turns the screen a bit dimmer. Or you can turn it into dark mode. And there's plenty of ways that you can do that. Just literally give it a quick Google, you'll be able to find out how to do that. So by reducing that white screen, that blue light coming from the screen, we can reduce the blue light coming into our eyes. Now, like I say, if you want to go a little bit further with this, you can get some blue light blockers. They look just like normal glasses, but they have a slight tint in them which filters out that blue light. By reducing the blue light, we reduce our brain's desire to stay awake because it believes it's daylight. Like I said, with sunlight, blue light and sunlight very closely related. Because the blue light is making us think it's awake, when we then go to home, we then get into bed, our brain has been being told for the past 10 hours that it's actually blue light. Which you know, makes it obviously think it's daylight. One thing I would also say is I put this in the community too, and it's when it comes to, I used to love a power nap, but not all power naps are made equal. So when we're in work, we want to reduce the blue light, and there's a multitude of different ways you can do this by changing screen settings and using blue light blockers. All right, so if you are a little bit tired before you go to work, you do everything right. What I'm going to talk about today, you implement it all, but you still just have that little bit of an issue, and you want to go to sleep. You just need a bit of a recharge. There is what I used to love doing called a caffeine power nap. Not all power naps are made equal, and we're going to talk exactly as to what a caffeine, I don't know if you spell caffeine like that, caffeine power nap. All right, so what is a caffeine power nap? Quite simply, you want to set a timer on your phone for approximately 22 minutes, because anything longer than 22 minutes, you will end up going into a deep sleep. This is when you wake up and you actually feel worse. You end up with sleep inertia or a sleep hangover. Now, what is a sleep hangover? It's basically a very fancy way of going, you know, that feeling where you've had a nap and you wake up and you feel 3 times as bad as you did when you actually went to sleep. Well, this is it. And what I also find as well is when we are trying to sleep during the day and we're not getting that good long restful sleep, it's like we're always in short sleep cycles and we're always going into that deep sleep and then waking up for whatever reason, daylight, the kids, outside noises, etc. So this is why you can feel so groggy and so terrible. Okay, so we want to go into a short power nap. Whenever I'm doing this, I like having on white noise or even just some nice music. I like a bit of lo-fi, maybe just some, you know, you can go on YouTube and you can find sleep music, just like power nap music. And it's nice, it's all like ethereal and floaty and lovely, it's dead good. So 22 minutes, white noise. But before you do that, you want to have a strong coffee. And I can hear what you're saying. Surely a strong coffee would stop me from being able to sleep. Yes, but coffee takes a bit of time to get into your system. So coffee takes time to get into your system, which means that you're then asleep. And then when you wake up after 22 minutes, the caffeine's kicked in and you feel amazing. Caffeine power nap, that's a free one for you, that. I actually didn't plan on talking about that today. But yeah, not all power naps are made equal. There's a nap, there's a power nap, and then there's a caffeine power nap. And honestly, it is incredible. It blows your head off. Absolutely blows your head off. All right, so the next one we'll talk about is probably the most important. It's your unwinding routine when you get home. Very important, this, very important, because what do we do when we unwind? What do we do when we get home? We don't deload our brain. Instead, we just don't add anything new to it. So if you can, I'm going to do a video more in depth on this soon about mental health protection and stuff. So I'll quickly cover it here because it is important. All right, if we imagine that this is our nervous system, this is our brain, this is what our body has, okay? And the stimulus comes in, stimulus, stress, you know, fatigue, etc. All that comes in. This then fills up our bucket, all right? So over time, this builds up. Now, when this gets overflowing, this is when we can have serious issues. You know, we can have mental health problems, we can have a panic attack, we can have a nervous breakdown, that sort of thing. What we do when we get home from a shift is we don't actually offload it. We don't use the tap. That's a terrible tap. That's a terrible tap. But we don't use the tap. All we do is we just don't add anything else to it. This is why when you go to work, after you've had a weekend off and you go to work and straight away, you're stressed straight away. Now, of course, the body remembers all that. The body remembers all this sort of stuff. And like I said, I don't want to go too much into it here, but when we get home, we want to not just let that water sit there, all that stress and all that strain and everything else. We want to actually offload it, we want to relax it. This is how we do that. We get home. You're not going to like this. You're not going to like this. I can hear you screaming at me right now. But you do not go on your phone. Why do we not go on our phone? Well, even if we take away the whole thing of blue light from screens, if you're thinking, well, Mr. Dartmoor, I bought them blue light glasses, what you were talking about. I've changed the setting on my phone. Blue light doesn't affect me anymore. That is true, but that is not just the main reason why we don't put blue light, why we don't use our phone. One of the main reasons we don't use our phone is just because it's stimulating. What do you go on your phone for? You go on it for social media. You go on it for Reels, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, etc. But that is actually quite stimulating. We don't want to be stimulating our brains before we are about to go to bed. But I need it for my alarm clock. I need my phone for my alarm clock. Bollocks. For years, people had alarm clocks. Alarm clock. People had alarm clocks long before they had phones. So that is always an option. If you don't think you can trust yourself to not have your phone on, then get an alarm clock. I know iPhones have this. I think Samsung will have some kind of it as well. But we want to reduce distractions, and our phones are incredibly addictive machines. They're designed that way, certainly when it comes to social media. The people that design the phones want to keep us on the phones. So every notification, every vibration, it's all engineered to get you back on the device. So we want to put it in do not disturb mode. If you're worried about people not being able to contact you, you can program your phone in the settings to allow certain numbers through. So for example, if I have a phone in do not disturb mode, my son, my parents, my girlfriend, the people important who would only really ring me if they needed something or in like a genuine emergency, they can get through. What it stops is all the notification, all the rubbish from social media, emails, texts, calls, etc. from people that can really wait. All right, so with this, we're protecting our stimulation levels. But before we even get into bed, and this one is a big one, and this relates to mental health, it relates to unloading that bucket I just mentioned, using the analogy I mentioned before. I encourage, when you get home, don't consume alcohol, so no alcohol, because alcohol affects our sleep. And then what happens, we have one drink, then we have two, then we have three. Next thing you know, you've had too much to drink, and you are staying up much later than you need to. So I would avoid alcohol. I would then be looking at how can we create dim lights. So dim lights. I also like having on just a little bit of music. Nothing too crazy. Like I said, a little bit of lo-fi, magnesium. What I would also suggest is we want to calm that nervous system down, we want to calm that body down. A nice decaf cup of tea. I'm terribly British. A nice decaf cup of tea, I always found, or a warm drink, or a hot chocolate, or some hot milk, something which is warm and soothing and relaxing but doesn't have caffeine. So warm, caffeine free. That's something else I'd also suggest. Warm and caffeine free. Now, while you're sitting there, you've not got your phone, you're having a nice drink, and you've got your dim light, and you've got your music to relax to, and the magnesium's working through your system. What should you be doing? Here's what I would suggest. So when we get into bed, there's only two things what happen. Our nervous system is so stressed because of the work we've just done, but also I often found I used to overthink a lot. I used to replay things in my mind. Maybe it was an incident I'd been to, maybe it was the things I had to do in work later, maybe it was stuff to do with the kids, maybe it was my to-do list for the day. It was things that I really didn't really want to be thinking about, but they would be playing in my mind, and that would help keep me awake. I couldn't switch off. So what I suggest, what we do, is we would journal. Write down your to-do list, have a brain dump. A brain dump is literally you just write down anything what's coming into your mind. You go, blah. It's like word vomit, but from your brain. And you'll find you just offload so much stuff. Oh, Sandra from HR said there was an arsehole. Barbara from HR is being a nightmare again. the boss was this, or that internet I went to was this. You know, we offload these things. And the reason why that is so important is not just for sleep, but the reason why this is so important is because that bucket I spoke about before, about the increase in the cortisol and the allostatic load and all the rest of it, journaling actively empties that. It empties it. You know when people say, oh, I feel much better after a good cry? Or speaking to somebody and having a good laugh with somebody, I feel much better. That's because we are reducing that strain on our nervous system. We're actively offloading it. Sitting there with your phone, drinking a beer, or you know, it feels nice, but you're not actively looking after yourself that way. You're not offloading anything. You're just stopping it getting any worse, or potentially getting worse if you're looking at, you know, harrowing things on social media. So journaling is a massive one. I would really recommend that you journal and you do a brain dump. Nobody else has to read it. This isn't something you're going to write and then publish online, or you're going to get your friends and family to critique it. This is for you. This is your own thoughts, your own personal diary, and maybe keep it next to the bed so it's there. And there's also something quite therapeutic about just sitting down and handwriting something. It's something we don't often do these days because obviously everything's typed either on the computer or on our phones. So I would recommend we do that. So how does all that look together? How will this all improve our sleep hygiene, our quality of sleep, our ability to get to sleep and stay asleep and feel that we are sleeping like a champion? So preparation, prepare our sleep space, darkness, white noise, temperature. We then have reduction when we're in work, and this is blue light blockers or change of settings. And then lastly, we have, I would argue, the most important, decompression. We decompress by avoiding alcohol, avoiding screens, dim lights, white noise. A lot of these overlap on this part. White noise, warm drink, maybe a magnesium. And then lastly, most important, brain dump. Because like I said, the brain dump will not just protect our sleep and help our sleep, it will also look after our mental health too. So I hope you found that video useful. Be sure to check out ShiftProof before to check out the community if you're not in there already. And be sure to check out this channel, and I will catch you in the next video. Like and subscribe. Love you lots.